calling all misfits, rebels, leaders, and teachers, welcome to the one place where the only way to fit in is by standing out, where big goals are met with even bigger action, and where we talk through then tackle all things entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Kelsey Knudsen, and this is the Get Shit Done podcast. Welcome to the Rebelution.
Guys are not ready for this episode. Kacia doesn't know this, but she's one of my dream people to have on the podcast. The craziest meet cute story, which the very cliff notes is we both have ties to Washington State. We did not meet in Washington State, and we've been stalking each other on the internet since then. But she is a freaking powerhouse. She's a very authentic, genuine human being, has a phenomenal podcast called Empower Her Podcast. And ultimately, I was just saying before we hit record, like, she really understands what it means to pivot intentionally and strategically. And today we're just going to pull back the curtain on all of the things. So I'm going to get out of the way. Kacia, could you just say hi to the people and just give a little context to who you are so they know what to expect?
Yeah, Kelsey, I'm so excited. Ever since we first met, I just think your passion for what you do and how you want to show up for women is so clear that I love supporting women that just get it, right? Like real, true girls. Because there's people that like give lip service to like, I support women. But it's like when you're really in it, because you're like, yes, like we want to help people like get to that next level. So hopefully in this conversation, we can have such a juicy, transformative conversation because it's going to be so honest and raw. So I'm super, super pumped to be here. For those of you that I don't know yet, like Kelsey said, my name's Kacia. I am a wife and a mom to a 14-month-old little baby boy. I live in Denver, Colorado, but I think the backstory that a lot of people will connect with is I did the thing that I thought that I was supposed to do. And then when I got there, I looked around and I was like, oh shit, this is not for me. What do I do now? Meaning like I, got the job, climbed the corporate ladder, was making great income. My last job, I worked at Google. But I left in 2015 because I had built a business on the side. Way back then, it was in network marketing. So 2014, I built that business. And I just saw that there was like another path for me. The reason why I felt so stuck and was ugly crying on my bathroom floor, the kind of like cries where like snot and mascara gets into your mouth and you choke on your spit because you're like, what am I doing with my life? Was because I was literally just in the wrong lane. And as soon as I got myself in the right lane, it was difficult because building a business sometimes feels like pushing a gigantic monster truck tire up a hill where you don't know what you're doing. And again, you're ugly crying. But if you're in the right lane, it feels so much more worth it. So as soon as I got out of the corporate world and started building a business, it really turned into just me listening to my intuition and making a lot of pivots. And I know you shared, one of the things that you've resonated with me, with even Empower Her, and you and I getting to know each other better too, is how unapologetic I am about pivots. Yeah. And it's because I just feel like we've got one shot here. And I want everyone that I can come into contact with to build a life that they're obsessed with, that's aligned for what they actually want. Because all of us are uniquely gifted different visions. And I believe if you're gifted the vision, you're also gifted the resourcefulness to figure out any how, but we just have to get out of our own damn way. So I've created podcasts and courses and memberships and 500-person events and retreats and done a lot of keynote speaking and my show and all these different things that I've done to hopefully just like shake women, be like, you freaking got what it takes. Like, let's get in the game and get off the sidelines. So open book on all things related to that.
I love that so much. And I completely agree with this idea that we're in control. No one is coming to save us. Entrepreneurship is sometimes just hard. Period. And it does take that hard work and grit. But I think what you do very well and what we should speak on is that dance between like intuition, manifestation, like having direction, following your gut, but also doing the steps that actually have to happen to support that life. Because Kacia's not just like, oh, let's talk about all the fluffy things. You have the numbers, the data, the income, and et cetera to back it up. So you intersect those two worlds super well. Yeah. Why do you think that is? Like, was there a moment or were you were born, raised like this? Like, what was that for you?
I think I've always had this belief that now I can articulate it a little bit better, that like if something's bugging us in the world or we see a problem that exists and it's just like really irritating us, often it's because we're supposed to figure out the solution for it, for ourselves, and in turn, sometimes for the world at large. So it's this idea of like, if it's not being represented the way you think it should, and it's bugging you, it's probably because you are supposed to be the representation. So for me, when I was really curious about what I wanted to do next, first was that network marketing business where I solved my own problem. It was like health and wellness space. That really took off. And then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it wasn't that I could just like jump and hope that the net would appear. At the time that I was building that business, it was completely supporting financially myself, plus my now husband, who is in dental school at NYU. So as you can imagine, really freaking expensive downtown New York City lifestyle. But I knew that it wasn't something that I wanted to keep doing because I felt like I was in a box. And for me, personality wise, I just wanted to do something that was more creative. I also knew that completely relying all of my income on something that I didn't own was a little bit scary. So instead of just quitting and jumping to the next thing, I was like, what can I create on the side that could then be another stream of income into our life that could give me more optionality in the future? So I was starting to just play with this idea where I'm like, I love podcasts. And I feel like a lot of the podcasts way back in 2018 when I started my show, a lot of the podcasts were women that were sharing their perspective, if they were women at all, which might I add, only 20% of podcasters are hosted by women in general, still to this day. So in that regard, I was like, a lot of these women that I respect and admire, they're giving advice in hindsight. Like back when I was in that season in my marriage and my business and my life, here's what I did. But they were so removed from it that there was actually not this like emotional connection that I had to them. While I was grateful because we can borrow belief from other people of what's possible, you know, especially people that are a couple steps ahead of us, I was craving this connection of someone that it felt like they were side by side with me. And it's back to that thing that we said before, right? If it's not being represented the way you think it should and it's bugging you, maybe it's because you're supposed to be the representation. So I created Empower Her with the idea of like, it'll be a come with me, let's figure out life together type of show. Like we're girlfriends chatting, figuring it out together, right? And that podcast really took off. And it took off, I think, because it was so transparent and honest. And I wasn't pretending like my shit was together, which is a really powerful reminder for all of us that people connect with people. And some of us are just waiting to make this like perfect offer, this perfect podcast, waiting for the perfect circumstances to start. But in reality, if you start when it's a little bit messy and you're a little bit more honest and open, that's actually going to bring people in more because they're going to trust you more because they're going to see themselves in your story. The podcast took off quickly. And then what I did that I think is one of the smartest things that entrepreneurs can do is I asked my community what problems that they had. And then I asked myself if I was excited to solve those problems. Simple, but powerful.
So pretty. It's so beautiful. I love it.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
And like a lot of people were like, Kacia, you know, I want to start a podcast. And I was like, I don't want to start a podcast. I'm sure I could help them start a podcast. So I literally went on a walk with my husband and I was like, I think I'm going to start this podcast course. And I had 4 bullet points on a Post-it note when I came back from this walk. I went live into a Facebook community, a free group that I had for my podcast listeners. I was like, I'm creating this course. It's going to be 4 weeks. It's going to take you from idea to launching your show. If you want in, I'm taking 25 women for my beta. And I think I made the price like half off. This was in 2020. The price was half off. And I was like, I'll take you from idea to launch. The first 25 people that sign up, you're in. 25 people signed up. And then I created the course. Please note I said I created the course after the people signed up. So as they were in the course, I would create the week content and then I would get feedback from them. And then I would fix any of the videos from the content based off of like questions that came up so that the course by the end of the 4 weeks was completely made. And I ended it with 25 women that had launched their podcast and I had 25 testimonials. That then turned into a $700 per person course that I did 25 women a month for literally 4 years. And it filled itself from referrals over and over again, no ad spend or anything. And the story that someone listening into this that's an entrepreneur can get from this is literally ask your community what they want and then decide, do I want to create it? And then don't make your like podcast course, your anything course, your whatever you're creating some fancy name that nobody understands what the hell it is. I was like, this is an intro course. It takes you from idea to launch in 4 weeks. Who's it?
You're not Nike.
Yeah, I'm like, who's it for? It's for women that want to launch a podcast in a cohort and they want access to the course creator because I did like live calls in it too. I was like, it's not for you if you want a self-paced course that you can launch a podcast in a weekend because I will not give you the content any quicker than the course lays it out. It's 4 weeks, you launch at the end. So if you want self-paced, it's not the course for you. If you want people in your community to launch with you, it's the course for you. And I think that in itself has helped me sell so many things that I've created is co-creating with my audience, asking them what problems they have, and then tactically knowing who it's for and also saying who it's not for. And people are afraid to do that, but it just makes it more clear to you where it's like, oh, it's not for me because I want to launch my podcast this weekend. I'm like, I'm not creating a new course for you. This is who it's for. So go find another course and being unapologetic about that.
It's so true. And I think that we are afraid to be authentic. Authenticity is one of my core values, but even I wrestle with it sometimes, you know. For those watching, first of all, Kacia and I are matching. We did not plan it, but it's pretty cute. I'm straight up in sweats. I'm the whole like mean girl sweatpants are all that fit me right now anyways, but like I'm like popping the hood more and more and more. And every time I do, it always works. But we have this narrative, like we need to have it perfectly figured out. And guess what? Sometimes you make it quote unquote perfect and it totally flops. And so what Kacia is saying is so true. And so I love that you spoke to that. Do you mind just to share transparently? You had mentioned with like your previous direct sales world.
Yeah. MLM, network marketing, direct sale, whatever you call it. Yeah.
Girls making money and supporting Know Your Life within probably reason. At what point were you able to close that side of your business and then lean on this podcast stuff? Because I think that's the other stuff people, it's not like you're just like, oh, I'm not aligned anymore. I'm just going to quit everything and like hope it works out. Like when do you make those leaps and what have they been in all the different iterations of your business?
Yeah. So we're, you know, my husband and I are both from Seattle. We moved to New York City when he got into NYU dental school. At that time, I was working at Google in Chelsea. And that income, my Google income, was supporting us completely with my network marketing business, which I partnered with a company called Beachbody, like 21 Day Fix, Insanity, P90X. They had like fitness programs and stuff back then. And that business was on the side. At the time, it was making like a couple $100s a week. So it was not even close to replacing my income. I waited until the point that I was making more money than my full-time salary with Google was. And I was stacking up a runway. So we had like 4 months that could cover our bills before I put my notice in. I had to be really strategic because we did not have a backup plan. Like we didn't live near family. My husband was full-time in dental school, so he had zero income. So I could not just like jump. I very strategically built it on the side.
Man, but those are times you get gritty. And like sometimes that's the best way to do it. Because if you don't have time to be distracted, you don't have time to chase random shiny objects.
It's so true, Kelsey, because like I actually think it's easier to build a business when your back's against the wall versus like if things are good and you're trying to go from good and comfortable to great because there's no pain point. Versus like if you're like, crap, I'm literally not going to pay my bills if I don't make this work, then you're going to like hustle. And I hustled my face off. The way I worked then, I do not work at all that way now. But honestly, like that grit earned me the flow that I have 10 years later in this season of life because it showed me what I was made of. And like, you know, it gave me so much confidence because I really feel like confidence comes from reps and like building a business month after month, like figuring out how to, you know, share yourself on social media and build a personal brand and all of the things. Like as a first-time entrepreneur, I just learned so much that then I could take those skills into the next thing. And then I started my podcast at the end of 2018 while I still had that network marketing business, but I knew that I didn't want to do it anymore. At that time, I was making probably around like 375 grand a year with the network marketing business. So that was a big chunk of income. My husband then became a dentist, but I knew I didn't want to do that anymore. So I had that business in the background and I started my podcast and I was really intentional about not talking about my network marketing business on my podcast because I wanted to build a personal brand outside of that network marketing business that I knew I wanted to leave. And I felt like this could help me build community outside of that. So it wasn't just me, the person that was in network marketing, because I knew I didn't want to be doing that a year from now. So from a tactical perspective, it's like asking yourself, to the women listening into this, what am I doing now that's setting me up for a 1 year ahead version of me? And for me, I knew I needed to separate those brands to give that future version of me optionality. So I didn't talk about my network marketing business on my podcast. Instead, I created like just putting out 2 episodes a week every single week for an entire year before I monetized the podcast. It was literally just the way that was going to get me out of that business, build a new community, and then I would ask that community what they wanted, what problems they had, figure out what I wanted to solve, and build a new business there. Around the end of 2019, I completely stopped doing anything with the network marketing business. I was still making money from it, but I wasn't actively talking about it ever at all. And I leaned into building out a membership and courses. So I still had it running in the background, but I was really like completely focused on building up the new thing. And then that new thing, it probably took about 2 years maybe for it to surpass the old thing. And then honestly, just full transparency, that network marketing was still a stream of income until last week was my last paycheck with it because they closed down the company. Like they changed to an affiliate model. I basically would like do something on the side. So I had the network marketing business, I built the podcast on the side, and then I would build the courses, and then I would create like something else that wasn't the main thing yet. So I was really strategic about like those different buckets of income and having different streams that I could turn on or off. That worked really well.
You guys, if you're listening and you've ever uttered the words multi-passionate, serial entrepreneur, this is how you freaking do it. This is the honest, strategic way to do it. And I'm just glad we're having this conversation because I don't think people talk about it. Either they start their business, they're ride or die, they stay in that business forever. Yeah. But I don't know about the people you're around, Kacia, but I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who that initial passion, that like back against the wall, make it work, even though it's a difficult season, there's something so rewarding about that you scale to a point, you have a team of people. A lot of people I'm around are kind of like, what am I even doing anymore? And they're thinking about their what's next. But guess what? They have new golden handcuffs. They're entrepreneurial handcuffs.
Yes.
And so it's like, how do I even start to think about that's what's next? Because I could be wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure people listening today, guess what, you guys? She's not doing podcast courses anymore. Like that is not a bulk of your life and business right now. And so you've iterated even past that point. So you're in the podcast world, that community is working, people are explaining their core problems, but at least from outside looking in, it seems like your interests and desires were bigger than the problems you were solving. So how did you then make that next leap and shift?
Yeah. So that was the main thing that started to make all of the income, where it was podcast courses. And then naturally the next level of that was people coming to me saying, Kacia, how can I monetize my podcast? Yeah. So then I created a mastermind where I did that together with women in person. Then I created one-on-one courses. So I like had different streams of helping support podcasters. And then at some point, to what you kind of picked up on, I just felt like I wasn't as excited about solving that problem in that way. And part of it was honestly just being fully transparent. I've had my podcast for 6 years now. So I got so far away from that initial avatar that I felt like emotionally I couldn't connect with her as much. The feeling of being really scared to put yourself out there for the first time ever and like hitting publish, like, what are people going to think about me? I remember that when I was closer to that avatar, but now I'm 6 years removed. I feel like podcasting has completely changed my entire life, business, family dynamic, finances, everything, that I'm like, just go. Like, I almost like can't connect with the fear.
Yeah.
So I realized I'm like somebody else needs to be doing this. Like, I'm not close enough to it. It's not a problem that's like lighting me up. And one of the things that I ask myself is like, have I done something with like enough oomph and enough strategy and really focused in on it to say with 100% certainty that that chapter is closed? Because one of the things that's really difficult is when you start something new. From my experience, every single thing that I've started new, I've completely sucked at it. Like, for sure, sucked at it. But you have to put enough reps in that you can get past that initial suck thing, and then you can keep going, right? Because like I suck at it, and then I suck at it and I still like it, or I suck at it and I hate it. And if I suck at it and I hate it, okay, then I shouldn't be doing it. But if I suck at it, but I like it and I could see myself being excited about it a year from now, then I just have to get past that initial stage. And that initial stage is what actually is going to make us proud of ourselves, because nothing makes us proud that was super easy and handed to us on a silver platter, right? So I think about that like a kind of resistance beginning stage. And that's really helped me determine like when's the right time for me to actually make a move. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I just think how you make those decisions matter, to your point. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I'm in podcasting. This is 2025. I'm like, what is time? Pregnant, whatever. I started mine in 2021, and it's a completely different version of what it was then. But to your point, like I've grown as a human. And so then the problems I solve and the people I solve them for have also grown. And I think the hardest thing in entrepreneurship, starting hard, sure. But when something's working, but your heart is no longer a hell yes about it. And then just that, like, that's on me to change and fix. There's just something about that space that's like kind of lonely and isolating. So do you mind kind of sharing, what are your current priorities? What are you currently focusing on? Like, what is the now version of you tackling, and how you decided that?
My podcast, I've had 650 episodes, 6 years, 11 million downloads, earned a couple $1 million through the podcast and into like things of my own or sponsorships, whatever. And a couple months ago, I thought that I was going to close it all down. And I didn't. But instead, I was like, what is it that's like not making me as excited about it anymore? And to be honest, it was that I was fearful of leaning into something that I'm so passionate about now, which is motherhood and business.
Oh, we're going there, but yes.
Right? Like those two. And it was interesting because when I got pregnant and I shared that I was pregnant, I had a woman that has really sweet woman. She's been to my events. She's been in my courses before. Like she's been in my back when I had like a membership back in the day. I've like known her for many years. She sent me a DM and she said, "Hey, Kacia, I'm so excited that you're pregnant. I really hope you don't start talking about pregnancy and motherhood on your podcast because I don't ever want to be a mom. And I'm sure there's lots of other women in your community that don't want to be moms. So I feel like I'm not going to resonate with your content." And as much as I love personal development and I feel like I'm pretty self-aware, my initial reaction was like, get the F out of my DMs. Like it wasn't like this enlightened, like Buddha version of me that was like, oh, give her bless and release. But I was like, what the F? Like you're telling me what to do with my podcast. But the second thing I felt after about like, to be honest with you, about 30 seconds of just being like, what? Who does she think she is? The second thing I thought was, whoa. What if I was a brand new podcaster and someone told me that? I would not have the confidence yet in my own voice and how I put myself out into the world. That could have completely derailed me if I was brand new. But I was 5 years in at that point, maybe 4.5 years in at that point. And I had put in so many reps and I loved the platform. And I was so excited about like that season of my life that instead I was able to like step back and say, okay, number one, I need to do a podcast about this to remind other people that nobody gets to tell you what to do. But also I was like, wow, I have a little bit of resistance that I didn't even realize, like underlying people pleasing tendencies that I think all of us have as women, where I wanted to almost like accommodate her and be like, you're right. No, don't worry. It's still going to be about personal development and mental health and like all of that. Don't worry. You're not going to feel alienated. And to be fully transparent with you, Kelsey, I have, at the time that we're recording this, I have a 14-month-old. So like over a year that I've been a mom. And it was a couple months ago that I wanted to shut down the podcast. And it was because I wasn't fully ready to step into the fact that like I don't really want to and don't feel passionate about working with women who don't also have this desire to be present moms or on their journey towards becoming moms and juggle entrepreneurship or growing in their career. That's who I feel really called to serve because that's my forever life now. Right. So like trying to cater towards everyone was sucking my soul. And so instead, I doubled down on it. I literally just created a new podcast cover, a whole new segment on my show that's called Mom Chats. I put motherhood on the cover of my podcast and I created a brand new intro that's like, I'm talking about motherhood because that's what I care about. So let the people that don't align with that leave and exit the building. There are so many other podcasts for you. And let me double down on what I'm excited about. And to be really honest with you, never in my life of my 10 years of being an entrepreneur am I more excited than I am in this exact moment.
Yeah, I think we're afraid to be specific.
Yeah.
And time again, it just, and I don't, I don't know like what scientifically is happening, if it's just the confidence, the clarity, the like connectedness of it all, but there's something about being specific and not being afraid to. And what's crazy is in the beginning, you had said, ask your audience what problems you can solve for them, but there's a time where they are the wrong people to be telling you that.
Yes.
I love my mom. She probably won't listen to this. My mom's my biggest fan. She's a flight attendant. She's like the number one hype woman of all hype women. And she still to this day doesn't really understand what I do for a living. And for in the beginning entrepreneurial phase, I would ask her feedback on things. And I realized she's the wrong person. Best intentions, loves me so much, tries to understand it. She's the wrong person. So I think we also, to your point that you made earlier, you have to be very mindful of who you're getting that feedback from. I think that comes from your audience when you're making things for them. I also, on the flip side, think that comes from the mentors that you're seeking out too. So you being more specific just means the people you help and work with are going to get better results because they're more aligned to who you are and what you're doing.
Preach, Kelsey. Like that needs to just be a video clip for you. Like that is so on point because it's like, I know who I'm for and now I know who I'm not for. So anything that I create, like even this event that I'm putting together for this spring, I'm literally like, it is for moms that are also entrepreneurs with young kids under 5. That's literally who I'm targeting it to because I'm like, that's the season that I'm in.
Yeah.
And guess what? Then people know if it's for them or it's not for them. With doubling down on that, and this is a good reminder for anyone listening, and like decide who you're most excited to serve. That if somebody slid into your DMs on Instagram and they're like, Kelsey, Kacia, insert Shannon, Ashley, whoever randomly is listening into this podcast, right? Who would you be like, yes, this is my girl, their stage of life, the problem that they have, like what they're struggling with, like who would you be so pumped about? And right now I'm doing these VIP like in-person days with women. And the people that are coming to me are ironically like the person that just signed up right before I got on this call. She's like, I want to work with you because she's pregnant and she has a business. And she's like, you are prioritizing your family and motherhood while also still chasing your dreams and your business. Like you're the exact person I want to work with because you're just one step ahead of me. And that's why I'm working with you. And I was like, that's who I want to work with, right? Someone that I can be like, yep, girl, come on. I got you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think just don't be afraid to really step into that. And this is A, people listening, but B, just a reminder to me also. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I keep saying that every day. Here's what I do know. I know what kind of mom I want to be and emulate, like the examples in my friend circle and my family circle. Like I know I want to be present. I want to also continue to chase my dreams and allow them the space to evolve in this new chapter of life. So I think that as a follower, as a podcast listener to your world, that energy, it feels like you literally just drink a 5-hour energy. I mean, probably something for you, but you know what I mean? Like it feels so reinvigorated and I'm just excited for you. So thank you for sharing that in the moment too.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really important that like we all recognize, and sometimes I feel like there's someone that needs to hear this right now, where it's important to think about how you are inspiring other people that you don't even realize are watching you.
Yeah.
And if someone listening in doesn't feel that way about themselves, I want to remind you that you have definitely been inspired by somebody that you did not tell is inspiring you. And in particular for me, when I was in the grocery store yesterday, I saw this mom with a toddler who looked like he was a little bit older than our son, Brody. And he was having a full on meltdown. And she was so calm and put together and so kind and compassionate towards her kid. And I was looking at her and I was just like, oh my God, she's freaking crushing it. Like, am I going to be that patient when he's like totally losing his mind? And I was so inspired by her in that exact moment. I didn't go up to her and tell her that I was inspired by her, but her just being and like, you know, I'm sure she's done a ton of work on herself to be able to act that way in that type of situation. Please recognize that somebody's watching you. To the woman listening into this that's changing career paths, getting out of that relationship that's no longer serving them, finally prioritizing their mental health, right? Starting that business, launching that podcast, like putting yourself in the room, like you're inspiring people that you don't even realize. So like we actually need you to get yourself lit up because it ripples and more so tidal waves into the world. So we all have to take that on our shoulders for the next generation too, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I've been dying to ask you this question because I think that the answer evolves as life evolves. And I just want to know today, you, as we're recording this, what's success look like and mean to you right now?
It looks like my nervous system feeling at peace and grateful and not manufacturing chaos because it feels more comfortable. I grew up with someone that was an addict, so I was like pretty comfortable with chaos. Then I created this narrative of like very self-sufficient. And to be honest, I've been with my husband, Sina, for 16 years now. But up until recently, I don't even think that I really like we have a great marriage and we're best friends and I'm obsessed with him. But I don't even think it was until pretty recently, especially after becoming a mom, that I fully really started to rely on him so much more because I needed him so much more. And so in this stage where I'm working less, I'm so much more intentional with my yeses and my nos. I'm so much more like prioritizing my own mental health, my friendships, my marriage. Like I'm so much better at my boundaries and stuff that like it actually feels like a lot of ease and happiness and joy. And because it doesn't feel chaotic, I have to be really cautious. And success is that I don't create a problem so I can solve the problem because I just want that comfortable feeling of my nervous system. So that's actually a success, is like just like soaking it up and like letting myself just like cry because I'm happy sometimes because I feel like a prior version of me literally like hoped and dreamed and prayed for this exact season that I'm in. And anyone listening into this episode right now can resonate with that in some regard. There's something in your life that a prior version of you would be so freaking excited about. You know, Kelsey, you right now, like you're pregnant with a baby that a prior version of you wanted so badly. And like, here we are. Like, what the hell are we waiting for to like savor it all? And I don't want to miss this season of savoring by overriding the joy, because I just want to make it feel like more challenging, to feel like it's like I'm worthy of it or some sort of weird concoction, right?
Yeah, I think in a world, I mean, the podcast is called Get Shit Done. My shtick
Yeah.
is like, I'm the KPI queen. I believe in all the systems, but at the heart of it, if you just constantly keep kicking back that goalpost, it will never be enough. And so there is a point where you have to ask yourself that deeper question of like, what does that fulfillment look like? What is that success? I think for a lot of us kind of high performers and people who grow up with just hard shit, I
Yeah.
think we have something to prove and we don't even realize we're doing it. And it's wrapped under this guise of acceptance and entrepreneurship because hustle is cool. And there are seasons, there are times, but when did you feel like you could look at success in this way? Like, is there financially peace you had to have? Like, was there a moment? Was it having the exact opposite? When was that for you? Because I imagine you wouldn't have answered that question this way a couple years ago.
No, definitely not. I think I started to realize that everything in my business required me to be on in order for us to make money. And I have been a breadwinner in our family for my entire business. Now it's kind of shifting. My husband just started a new company, and I think that this year he'll make more than me, and for the first time ever, even back when he was a dentist. About 2.5 years ago, before we even like tried to get pregnant or anything, I was really thinking about like, what are we going to do financially when everything requires me to be on? Because like podcasting, I don't get paid if I don't podcast. Keynote speaking, right? Hosting
Literally
retreats,
feel
hosting
victimized
events.
right now. Keep going.
Right. Literally everything that I do requires me. And there are a lot of people in my life that are like, we'll just make evergreen courses or just take you out of it, etc. And I'm like, yes, but it doesn't light me up. And if I'm not lit up, then I have a really hard time selling it because it doesn't feel authentic to me. If I'm excited, I can sell like ice to an Eskimo because I'm just pumped, right? So I was like, what could we do? And my husband and I had a really transparent conversation about this. We're like, what can we do that we can take this income that's coming in, but turn it into something that doesn't require me to be on, that could be more passive or could be more on his plate instead of mine. And for us, like, 2.5, almost 3 years ago, we started investing in real estate. And that's what really we were taking active income from one business and putting it into real estate, and built a large portfolio in the last 2.5 years that we could live off that portfolio now if I stopped and there was no income coming in from my business. We don't want to do that. And I really care about the impact that I'm making, which in turn also means income that I'm making. But that's where it gave me a lot of safety and security. And so for people listening in that are entrepreneurs, it's asking yourself, like, how could you change your business and the model so it could be something that doesn't require you to be on in order to make money? If you're a W-2 employee, how can you start investing your money into something else that doesn't require you? So you've got another stream of income. W-2 employees building a side hustle, really freaking incredible. Early on in my podcast, I had a woman on my show that had $1 million side hustle while working a W-2 job still. Right. So like having multiple streams of income, I think creates a lot of safety and security for us. But for me, it was really like that pivot with the real estate now makes me feel like I can create from this place of just like, I'm excited about it. And it turned, yeah, it does make money. But the point isn't like, how can I make X amount of money? But it's like, what can I do with the skills that I have and the way that I want to impact? And then how can we take that active income and put it into something more passive?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I'm looking for. I think, again, I don't think people talk about it. And I think people are going to listen to this and be like, I don't have the luxury, Kelsey or
Yeah.
Kacia, to like
Yeah.
sit and do that and to just like be in flow. And then to me, the challenge question back to that is like, okay, but what would it take to support a place of that? To your point in the nervous system piece, we all need that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
all would probably benefit from just like a little less caffeine and more of flow and more just doing things from a place of passion. But there is also a reality component too of what supports your life and your goals. And so I think that you articulated that really well. And I just appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Well, I also think like I get the place where like people might be listening to this, like thinking, oh, like good for you, but I can never do that. But I started with not having any income, right? Like I started with figuring it out and layering things on. And I think some women listening into this might be struggling in their business because right now they're acting like the Cheesecake Factory menu, which is my least favorite restaurant. No offense to anyone that loves it, but there's so many items on the menu and there's ads in the menu. And it's like, it's so overwhelming. I also have ADHD. So I'm like, I can't, like, there's too many options. Just like, give me 3 options. Like, I'll pick the Renee sandwich or whatever the F it is. Anyway, some of you are doing so many things that you're confusing people. So you're losing people. And what you're actually doing that might be subconscious is you're putting out so many different products because you're not willing to focus in on the one thing that could move the needle in a massive way because you're afraid of failure. You're afraid that if you focus in on that and it quote unquote fails or doesn't work out, that you then are a quote unquote failure. When in reality, any feedback that you can get is helpful and supportive. And maybe we need to just cut some things off of your product suite and just get really, really focused. Like, there are only 3 ways that people can work with me this year. That's it. There's so many other options, but I would be half-assing them versus I can full ass a couple of things. So for people that are struggling, it's like, please figure out who you're not for. Figure out who you're most excited to serve and who you're not for. Figure out exactly who your products are for. And please stop making them sound like these sexified names that you went to ChatGPT and you're like, make this sound so much more fluffy. Like, what's the deliverable? Like, what are you actually providing? What's the transformation? Get like concrete about that. And I'm saying that because I love you. Like, I truly believe that if you were gifted a vision on your heart for something that you want to create, you were also gifted the resourcefulness to figure out any how along the way, but you might be holding yourself back because you're afraid. You're afraid of fully committing. You're afraid of like saying what you really want and fear that like somebody else is going to think something of you. But to your point, Kelsey, as much as you love your mom's not an entrepreneur. She's not in the game. So you can't expect that she's going to be able to give you advice. She wants to protect you. She wants to keep you safe from her experience, her lived experience. So to anyone, find somebody that's a couple steps ahead of you, borrow belief from them that if it's possible for them, it's possible for you too, and then do it your way.
Yeah. Which means Kacia has to show up to her people, her hell yes people. I have to show up to my hell yes people. And you listening, you also have to show up. Yeah. And I just completely agree with that. I'm just laughing because I keep joking. I'm in my simplicity season also. I was on a board I quit. I hosted another podcast that I quit, and all my ego was like, all those things felt really good to have my name attached to them, but I am just cutting shit off. Yes. Part of it, I think, is just the reality of how much my life is going to shift this summer, but also part of it is allowing better focus to a few really strategic core things that feel like deep in my soul yeses. And so I'll report back. But yeah, I'm excited for that for myself, but I'm also glad that you brought that to light because I think that we all need that reminder always.
One of my friends and mentors, Chris, says ego is your biggest overhead. And like, it's so true. Like when you're
Chris Harder,
I want to do this and I want to say yes to this and I want to,
yeah.
It's like ego and people pleasing tendencies. Like what's I'm going to think if I say no to XYZ? Well, honestly, from my experience, I say no to so much now, like, especially as a mom. Podcasts. Like I used to be on so many podcasts each week, but I say no to a majority of podcasts unless it's someone that I like really connect with, which is why I was like, yes, of course I'll be on your show. But when I say no, I'm like, hey, I only work 3 days a week now. And when our nanny's here, I just don't have the bandwidth to prioritize being on a lot of podcasts, but I'm so excited for you and I'm rooting for you. Here's this free community that I made for podcasters. Go join that and find other people to collaborate with. And if they have something to say, like, I don't have the bandwidth to care. I just can't, too many tabs.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I could genuinely hang out with you all day long. And I think those listening, this will come out after PNW Live, which by the way, you just got to witness Kacia doing her thing on stage. I am so freaking excited for you to share all your ahas from that. But I want to end with just one question. Is there anything on your heart that you feel like someone listening definitely needs to hear this today? It's 2025. They're February-ish. They're looking at the rest of the year. What do people need to hear?
I want you to understand that the distance between where you are now and where you want to go is your qualification period, right? A lot of times we get caught up in like, oh, I'm here, but I want to be there. How am I going to get there? And then we start looking at that distance and we label it overwhelming and intimidating. And we start asking ourselves crappy questions like, why am I not getting there faster? Why can I not do this? Crappy questions give you crappy answers. But in reality, it's like, if a magic genie came and gave you the dream that you have tomorrow, you actually wouldn't be able to hold it yet. right? Like for health and fitness goals, if you have a goal of losing 20 pounds this year and like it happened tomorrow, you wouldn't have the habits and the mindset and the nutrition, like support for yourself and the stress management and the water intake and the sleep. You wouldn't have the habits. So it would all spontaneously combust and you would gain it right back and probably even more because you just don't have the capacity yet. So trust that that distance between where you are now and where you want to go is literally going to teach you everything that you need to learn. You're going to build the resilience and the grit and build the community and just build up the confidence in yourself. So when you get there, wherever there is, you can actually handle it. And you can look back at the path that you took towards getting there and know how many times you wanted to give up and be like, holy shit, I didn't. I'm so effing proud of myself. And I just don't want anyone to instant gratification, want themselves to get there more quickly and recognize that you're robbing yourself of the feeling that you're actually craving from setting that goal in the first place, which is how proud you're going to feel because you got yourself there. So don't override that, especially in the world that we live in. Amazon Prime, instant gratification. We want everything more quickly. We're socialized to think if we get it more quickly, it's better. Like your path is required. Get on the path, make it more fun, and keep going. And a future version of you is going to be really proud.
So great. Thank you for everything. For the people who are crazy and have no clue how to connect with you, which I can't imagine that world, but please direct traffic here and tell people where to get connected and plugged in.
Literally the most tricky name. So it's Kacia, Kacia, Kacia Ghetmiri. You can find me on Instagram. My podcast is called Empower Her. Lots of fun things coming. So come find me over there. And thank you so much, Kelsey. I appreciate it, girl.
Yeah, we'll have it linked in the show notes for those that are like me and can't spell right now. So they should have her stuff in there. Appreciate you all listening, and we will catch you next week.
Hey, thanks for being a part of the Get Shit Done Rebelution. My hope is this episode sparked a fire in you, equipped you with some practical next steps, or inspired you to take action towards your goals. If it did, please help spread the word by sharing this episode or leaving a review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're tuning in. Now it's time for me to hand over the keys and let you get shit done.